So I want to flip my earlier question about headlines on its head. What do you guys think is getting lost in the headlines right now? Um, you know, s- what do you think people are missing? What do you think people are not seeing? Nate, I'm going to start with you.
I don't know if mine is necessarily one that people are missing, but I think there's a key data point that shows it. And like we talked about at the beginning, I said, I think the tariffs can boost inflation. Well, getting back to that other double-barreled approach that Aaron was talking about, well, what's going on with economic growth? And I think we are seeing some signs of growth slowing down. And really, there's one headline that really jumped out to me, and it's not meant to be a specific stock forecast, but what we heard from airline companies was really important in this first quarter. You saw the major airline companies, Delta, American, Southwest, all cut their first quarter forecast of sales. Now, again, that's not meant to say that these are bad stocks or bad companies, but it is an insight into consumer spending and economic growth. If you're traveling, you're usually spending wherever you're going. It's kind of like buying a house in a way where there's a lot of additional spending that goes with the purchase of a home. When you buy an airline ticket, same kind of thing. It's a big economic driver. And when you look at specifically why Delta was cutting their forecast specifically, you get quotes from the CEO of, and I quote, I think people are cautious and they're pulling back a little bit on travel, not in an organized manner, but just kind of wanting to see what's going to transpire, whether it's trade, tariffs, or macroeconomic policy. It's just a little bit of unsettledness in the market is what they're seeing. So we've heard a lot about how consumers are nervous, but the economic data has actually held up pretty well when you look back. Growth has slowed, but it isn't falling off a cliff. Quotes like this make me nervous that that second barrel we talk about, the growth is going to significantly pull back. Because you heard the same thing from United Airlines as well. And that gets in, and I don't want to be a fear monger here because, again, we need to stay invested. We have strategies, this happens. But if we have higher inflation and slower growth, there's a term that's kind of an economic boogeyman called stagflation. Stagnant growth, high inflation. And what that really means is when growth peels back, the Fed normally likes to cut rates, make monetary policy easier. But if inflation is moving the opposite direction, moving higher, now the Fed's in a really tough place of they need to raise rates to fight inflation, but they need to lower them in order to support growth. It's a very tough economic environment if that's really what is unfolding. And that headline, while you're not getting a lot of people saying, they're saying recession odds are higher, this is the kind of headlines that a lot of people aren't talking about, is you're seeing some of it show up in the companies that are affected earliest by consumer spending. So getting back to Aaron's point, it all comes down to growth and inflation and what that means for interest rates. Like really everything, I leave it in the comments, send us emails. I'll be happy to kind of talk to people about no matter what your fear is, what headline you're seeing, you can boil it down to the impact on those two components, really.